Unbound Radio, your source of truth in a society of lies.
Hello there. I'd like to begin with a fact. A simple yet shocking fact. It is this. A flood tide of filth is engulfing our country in the form of newsstand obscenity.
We have to think still more profoundly. We have to see that the enormous powers which we now possess, thanks to the scientific and technological advances, shall be used for the benefit of human beings and not for their ultimate degradation.
True Stream Media with Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton.
On Unbound Radio.
Information gathering on every American.
Human experiments, electronic surveillance, invasion of privacy.
Growing government and corporate power.
We can uncover the truth and we can break the deception for good.
A people plagued by dehumanization,
loneliness, and violence.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You've found True Stream Media here on Unbound Radio. If you've been listening to our show lately, hopefully you've beginning to notice, let's begin to get the word out there, that we've moved to weekdays, a big change for us. And we're really only 3 days into it here on Wednesday, August 21st. Thanks for joining us. I'm Aaron Dykes.
And I'm your co-host, Melissa Melton.
You nearly forgot your own name, I think.
I don't know what my name is. I'm too busy being angry about the fact that Manning got 35 years in freaking prison.
Wow.
And he's apologizing. And he's saying, I'm sorry that I hurt the United States. That's what he said. He's apologizing to the corporation that is now our government, or whatever it is that's our government's not our government. Whatever this entity is that's running everything, this evil criminal gang. And he's apologizing for lifting the lid on the septic tank that is our government and showing some of the nasty, disgusting, putrid filth that was seeping below the surface. And he's apologizing. And he's apologizing after they kept him awaiting his trial for 1,294 days, during which they have officially decided 112 of those days he was tortured. Officially.
Yeah, he was tortured and he was kept in isolation, which is itself a torturous condition.
With the lights on, with nothing to sleep on, nothing to cover up with. Yeah, tortured. They tortured him for 112 days, so they're going to give him a little bit of extra credit, extra credit because we tortured you. What the hell? This is sick.
Well,
and he's like, I'm sorry, United States, that I hurt you. Meanwhile, we have basically a criminal gang running everything. They're going into other countries, causing uprisings, killing people. I mean, it's horrible stuff that's going on. I mean, there are people protesting in the streets all across the country right now about how Christian blood is being shed in the streets of Egypt and all this other stuff that's going on. And we're just sending drones over to unconstitutionally bomb whole groups of people. We're just killing children. No due process for any of that. No nothing. That's fine. And Bradley Manning gets to be tortured, held without trial for almost 1,300 days. And then at the end of it all, they say you get to stay in until you're like 60.
Well, it's a military trial, too, so it's pretty much Fox guarding the henhouse type of material there. But, of course, people will point out he was facing as much as 136 years at one point. You can see that they politically chose a sentence that was targeted to send a serious message, but not send people into complete uproar. And yeah, it's atrocious because the government's reached such a point where it's been bought out by lobbyists and corporations for over 100 years, and they have a lot to sweep under the rug. And these wars are absolutely...
It's a big rug.
These wars are undoubtedly, there's no two ways to put it, based upon lies. They're not just wars, and shame on you if you're willing to speak out about it, is what happened. Of course, it's more complex than just that, but Bradley Manning, 35 years in jail, you think they'll let him out on parole?
Well, they're saying that because it's a military system that he's in, that he'll be eligible for parole after serving a third of his sentence. But will they give it to him?
We'll find out. We'll be back on the other side, TrueStreamMedia.com.
Makes me sick.
ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
For hundreds of years, an elite group of oligarchs have ruled the land, fueled by a legacy of sex, money, power, and greed. In the last 60 years, their power has become more consolidated as they have become more organized. Their very own white papers and other documents show the diabolic plans they have in store for the population. Shade the Motion Picture, an Embellis and Burmis film, featuring Shepard Embellis, Jason Burmis, Alex Jones, Clyde Lewis, Webster Tarpley, Jordan Maxwell, Rosalind Peterson, Michael Murphy, reggae artist Skoll, Luke Rudowski, Servano Gonzalez, and more. Buy your copy of Shade the Motion Picture DVD right now at shadethemotionpicture.com.
Fill it to the rim with Unbound Radio.
Do you think they'll drop the bomb? Mother, should I trust the government? Mother, will they put me in the firing line? Is it just a waste of time?
Mother, should I trust the government? Melissa Melton here with Aaron Dykes, True Stream Media Live on Unbound Radio. I'm going to go with no, an emphatic no. We would not have known. I mean, we could have guessed. A lot of us in the alternative side of things probably had a lot of it figured out, but we would not have known specifics about what our government has been up to in these unconstitutional, disgusting wars. The war on terror is never meant to end. It is designed to keep us in what they called back in the 50s a wartime economy forever. That's the whole point. And when the Soviet thing died out after World War II, after a while they had to think of something else, and now we've got that something else. It's called the war on terror. Will it ever end? Could it ever end? By definition, it's not supposed to. And Manning, here's the list of what he leaked. 250,000 diplomatic embassy cables, a trove of sensitive military documents. He sent them to WikiLeaks along with included the Afghan war diaries, the Iraq war logs, some secret diplomatic communications, and a video of U.S. soldiers firing at Iraqi civilians and journalists from the air in a clip that was dubbed Collateral Murder. And we wouldn't have known about any of that stuff. And so I guess the message the government is sending is that they're going to do their secret evil stuff in secret. And if you say anything about it, you get to go to jail for longer than some murderers, basically. I mean, I've tried looking at some other cases just really quickly to kind of give you an idea. 35 years Bradley Manning got. Here's a couple right here. This is a father who had twin infant girls who he abused. When they found these baby girls, they had fractured skulls, broken ribs, and their feet were burned, and one of them died. And he got 40 years. So only 5 more years than Bradley Manning for murdering an innocent child. I have another thing here of a Shiprock man who was sentenced to 19 years in prison on second-degree murder and robbery. He had robbed some people earlier in the day, gunpoint, and then he went and robbed another guy, a 25-year-old man, and shot and killed him while robbing him. 19 years. Okay? So less than half, basically. Bradley Manning, 35 years. This guy, not even 20 years for killing somebody. And Bradley Manning's over here saying, I'm sorry, United States government, that I told on you. I'm sorry that I lifted the lid and let people see what kind of horrible nightmare juice you're pouring all over the world.
Well, I suppose in a time of universal deceit, that if telling the truth is a revolutionary act, then institutions necessarily have to have Orwellian names, justice being one of them. You know, the criminal justice system certainly isn't. They lock up nonviolent drug offenders. They let out plenty of violent people on parole. And Here they are now punishing leakers. And one of the most important aspects of the Bradley Manning case is it sets a precedent, obviously an attempt to chill other people who might leak or hack information and release it to the public that isn't meant to be. You see, there's lots of stuff that's declassified, and that's one of the reasons, it's not the only reason, but it's a key reason why we're able to detail all the crimes of our government. I've got just one book at my reach, The Wise Men. It's the story of 6 friends in the world they made. It's about people like Robert Lovett, Averell Harriman, John J. McCloy, George Kennan, Dean Acheson, Charles Bolin. These are people who served in FDR's cabinet. Half or more of them are skull and bones, and they just have total contempt for the democratic process, obviously working it for corporate interests, breaking all kinds of laws, negotiating, in the case of Averell Harriman, on behalf of themselves and not on behalf of our country. And that's piddly stuff. But you see, when it comes out 50 years later or whatever, it's just a cute story about what they did in tough times under questionable circumstances. When documents leak while stuff is still going on, which it was still too little too late in the case of WikiLeaks, that's different. The public's not supposed to be privy to the lies that they know are lies going on in regards to war and other policies. That's supposed to be something that comes out later. And all shucks, isn't it a shame so many people died? So many of our soldiers went to war for a lie. Why the hell should they go to war for a lie? I don't get it. I don't get why it's okay to kill these kids. And I saw and I covered that collateral murder clip, and it's horrifying.
No, it's horrifying.
They laugh about killing children and say, well, you shouldn't have brought them to a war zone. But it was a city.
They turned it into a war zone.
Of course, they have war on the whole country, but this whole age of urban warfare is very troubling to begin with.
Yeah, and then you watch the video of George Bush, George W.
They killed
Bush.
Journalists and their assistants. I mean,
yeah,
they
double tapped on people. They went back and fired on people when they tried to help the people that were.
They mistook camera equipment and tripods for, AK-47s and bazookas and whatever other weapons.
And there's a clip, you can find it on YouTube, maybe we'll find it and play it, of George Bush saying that the hardest part of his presidency was having to link the Iraq war to the war on to 9/11, or to link Iraq to 9/11. Isn't that what he said, or was it the war on terror? It was one of the two. He either said linking Iraq to the war on terror or linking Iraq to 9/11. Same difference.
Well,
but he straight up said that in an interview.
They mold publicly linking it to 9/11, and then when they realized it wouldn't fly, they tried to do a sublimation, an associative argument, without saying, well, there's not real evidence, but we all get the picture. It's
Look, we just have to go
thing.
over and blow up some people in the Middle East, okay? It doesn't matter what country it is or if there's any actual evidence to support us doing that, or if it even, no, we're just going to blow stuff up, basically. Whatever. Just get out your flag and wave it, because that's what it's about. So just wave your flag, war on terror. We'll just blow some people up. You'll feel better for a little while until we cramp down on you with this police state. Really quick, I just want to say, this is from Vice, and they were talking about, it's called The Torture of Bradley Manning. It's an article having to do with his situation that came out a while back, but there's an interesting paragraph in here. It says, it was WikiLeaks revelations, not the actions of President Obama, that forced the U.S. administration out of the Iraq war, Assange wrote. By exposing the killing of Iraqi children, WikiLeaks directly motivated the Iraqi government to strip the U.S. military of legal immunity, which in turn forced the U.S. withdrawal. Remember that whole time when Obama was first trying to get to be president? He's going around saying, I swear the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm paraphrasing, but I've seen the clips and they were over and over and over again. The first thing I'm going to do is get our troops home. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Over and over and over, and people still bought it even when he still wasn't bringing them home.
Well, what he actually did, and I don't have the exact phrases either, but I recall, he made a deliberate effort to give the impression he was going to end the war, but always would say responsibly pull out, which means actually never at all, because they haven't left Iraq. They've toned down the war, but there's still tens of thousands of troops, hundreds of thousands of contractors. There's permanent bases. We've taken over the country, as you well know.
Oh, yeah.
We've taken over their entire agriculture business, broken and shut down 10,000 plus years or whatever it is of heirloom seed saving,
Their
of
agriculture.
recultivation.
Oh, yeah. They went in there and destroyed that stuff so that we could bring in Monsanto's GMO crap.
They created feedlots and they grow GMO corn to feed it to the cows so they can run it like they do
That's
the U.S.
democracy. We're spreading freedom
It's
by enslaving them.
It's demonocracy.
It's demonocracy. We're enslaving them to the same, basically, corporatist system we got going on here. Awesome.
Well, let's not be fooled. The war hasn't ended there or anywhere that U.S. troops have been. And really, they've killed more children in Iraq through sanctions than they have through outright war. But war is so horrible. And they did kill many children. Over 1 million Iraqis dead from the war, at least 500,000 through sanctions. I don't know. I guess it's up for debate which system killed more. But both systems killed a lot in Iraq and many places around the world. And
I mean,
it's despicable.
I was talking about this the other day to Joe Joseph and Freedom Link, that I don't think there's a time since I've been alive on this planet that our government hasn't been at war with someone. I think we've been at a continual war for the whole time I've been alive. So it's kind of like, it goes back to that basic common sense principle of, you know, if everybody else is hanging out and you're hanging out and everybody else can't stand you and they have complaints about you, is it really just everybody else's problem or is it your problem at some point?
Well, you know, I'm not saying it's ethical to play Robin Hood and steal documents through hacking from the government. I could understand why they would look at that as a criminal offense, but when are the people supposed to know what's really going on, huh? Never?
No, we're never supposed to know what's going on.
When are they going to declassify what really happened to JFK, right?
Years from now?
What would we be doing without whistleblowers? When are they going to declassify what really happened on 9/11 and so many other cases? Obviously, they're not. The stuff WikiLeaks released is pennies compared to the hundreds of dollars of the real material stuff that this government's hiding. And it's in bulk. It's swept under the carpet, and it's a mountain high.
They're going to give you a piece of paper that's all redacted except for JFK at the bottom. That's going to be what happens.
We'll get into this in a minute, but again, Bradley Manning is setting a precedent. You've got Jeremy Hammond in jail for leaking Stratfor, for hacking into them. You've got Bradley Manning facing 100 years in jail.
Those Stratfor emails are quite interesting, by the way.
Yeah, and when were the people going to be told about that stuff? Under what FOIA request would that be released?
There wouldn't be. That's why they contract with these private intelligence firms. It's so that it's private. You can't FOIA request a private company, so you're never going to know what they're doing.
It doesn't really matter if you like what Barrett Brown was trying to do, but he released stuff that they would have never told us that's technically outside of government, but very much impacts what's going on inside government and the lives that we're forced to live within. And I just find it shocking. Now, this is probably not as detailed as it could be. I tried to look to compare crime sentences based on 35 years. I found Connecticut's minimum mandatory sentencing program. But this will give you some idea to compare with Bradley Manning's 35 years in prison, originally facing perhaps 136 years. You've got capital felony. That could be execution or life imprisonment. Aggravated sexual assault of a minor, first offense is 25 years. That's still shy of the 35 years. Another offense might get you 50 years. Murder would get you 25 years.
For a Class A felony.
Maximum 60. In Connecticut, a felony murder would get you 25 years, maximum 60.
Unless you're a big corporation or a big bank. Then you're too big to fail and you're too big to prosecute. You get nothing.
Bradley Manning got off light with 35 years. In Connecticut, assault of a pregnant woman resulting in the termination of pregnancy would get you 10 years, maybe 25.
Ugh.
Kidnapping.
This is justice.
First-degree felony kidnapping, Connecticut, gets you a year at a minimum, up to 25 years. Well, so don't steal documents, but if you got to do something, I guess kidnapping is
I guess
good
kidnapping's cheaper than, you'll have less of a sentence than if...
I mean, there's a range here, but it's all below...
First-degree kidnapping with a firearm, maximum 25 years. Holding someone hostage with a firearm and kidnapping them will get you less time than stealing government documents and exposing government treachery
If
to
you
the
leak
world.
secrets about the Iraq War, you get 35 to 135 years in prison and a military trial. But if you employ a minor in an obscene performance, you get 10 to 25 in Connecticut.
This is a joke.
A home invasion, 10, 25. Let's see. Sexual assault, first degree, 2, 5, maybe 10 years.
But I've heard people say he could have gotten more. As if that somehow makes it better that he was held for 1,300 days pending trial, and 112 of those days they actually deemed torture. Like it was only 112 of those days that was torture, but that's the ones they'll officially admit were torture? Like what? What is going on when you look around at this country? Like what happened?
Well, it's pretty clear, cruel and unusual punishment. That's a violation of the Bill of Rights, but they wanted to send them a message and show them what it's like to do hard time.
Which is so okay
isolation.
somehow? Like that's okay? How about the people that tortured him get something? No, we're not going to do that?
Well, it'd probably be like 1 to 25 over here if they ever saw justice. We'll be back on the other side. Stay with this Stream Media Unbound Radio.
Get ready for the epic new documentary adventure ride of your life. Shade the Motion Picture. A view into the globalist domain. An Embella Suburban's film.
Nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does.
We have elected now the new world government has been identified, and they thought they could quote the world economy to bring in a worldwide police state, but instead it's going to bring them down.
You have to stand up, speak up, speak out.
Shade the Motion Picture. Order your copy of the DVD today at shadethemotionpicture.com.
Are chemtrail geoengineering programs changing our weather and destroying our environment? Why in the world are they spraying?
They want to create a storm in the southeast, then they'll start engineering out over the North Pacific. That's where the trailies will be.
Find out why critics are calling Why in the World Are They Spraying the most important film that is revolutionizing the environmental movement. Go to whyintheworldaretheyspraying.com for more information.
It's just going to get worse until the point where we're not going to be able to grow anything at all unless it's a Monsanto genetically modified abiotic stress resistant seed.
Why in the World Are They Spraying? New international version with languages available from around the world. Go to whyintheworldaretheyspraying.com for more information.
It's all about money, and weather is another form of commoditizing, a way the Central Command Group can commoditize another form of our life.
Why in the world are they spraying?
And if you control the weather, you're going to control the planet. It's that simple.
IntelliHub.com, just the website you were looking for to get all of your news from. Whether it be health, science, geopolitics, globalism, depopulation, or the ever-increasing police state, IntelliHub.com covers it all. You can expect top-of-the-line daily reports from our reporters and journalists, such as Avalon, JG Vibes, Shepard Ambellis, Derek Bros, Servano Gonzalez, and more. Check out IntelliHub.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Intelligence Hub. IntelliHub.com.
Fearless, provocative, boundless talk radio all the time. Unbound Radio.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out, because the revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruption. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
And we're back, True Stream Media Live on Unbound Radio. We've been talking about Bradley Manning, and I think we're about to just shift gears.
But first, I want to read the 8th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. And that remains...
Wait, but they do that all the time.
They do, and they're supposed to have a speedy trial. That's in other parts. I think, what is that, the 7th Amendment? That's exactly what we saw with the Bradley Manning case, and that remains an outstanding point. He was tortured in prison. I mean, he must have some recourse while he's facing a large chunk of his life in sentencing. And again, he was the one who apologized to government for harming the United States.
I'm sorry to the United States.
To the United States of corporations,
the cruel, cruel, evil stepmother from a horrible Disney movie nightmare. I'm sorry, United States. After you tortured me, after you completely just ate my rights for breakfast like an evil monster under the bed, I'm sorry to you. They're not sorry for what they did, obviously. They're not sorry about the collateral murder video where they're shooting journalists and children. Not sorry about that. He's sorry to them for letting other people know they did that. See how that works? Makes total sense, right? I'm just disgusted. I'm disgusted about that, and I'm disgusted today. I'm going to talk about Michael Hastings again. And I think I'm going to keep talking about Michael Hastings while the media continues to just lie down on its job and do nothing but flail about uselessly. Like now they've put out his autopsy report, and they found traces of amphetamine in his blood, which was 0.05 micrograms per milliliter in his blood. And he had a medicinal marijuana card, and they found traces of marijuana in his blood, which he had a legal card to buy medicinal marijuana. And reports are coming out now from Young Turks that he was actually taking Adderall, which would show up as an amphetamine on your blood. So he was doing two things that were completely legal. They should not even be reporting on because it's not even. But what is the media doing? All over the place, they are putting out stories like
meth, which is clearly a...
We found traces of meth and pot in the journalist's death. He was doing meth and pot. He was on drugs. Like,
well, if he was on Adderall, I'm not really in favor of prescription drugs, but that's not meth.
No, it's not meth. It's not meth at all. And he was taking medicinal marijuana he had a card for that for PTSD, which he suffered from being a journalist in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, where he reported like out of Baghdad and stuff. And here's this was on ABC News, but it's out of Associated Press. You know how they always regurgitate Associated Press and Reuters. And the sentence and the whole story starts off with, after 14 years of sobriety, journalist Michael Hastings had returned to drugs. That's what they said. It is such a complete smear job, character assassination, misrepresentation of the facts. It is ridiculous. Traces of amphetamine and marijuana in his system, which were both, first of all, legal. Not that I think a lot of these things, like a lot of the pharmaceuticals that are legal will kill you, and some of the drugs like marijuana will not, that are illegal. So that tells you something. Someone's making money off that system. But the fact that they would start off, first of all, after 14 years of sobriety, journalist Michael Hastings returned to drugs. They're talking about it like they found him in an alley somewhere, like with a needle in his arm, all passed out, drooling on himself. 14 years ago, Michael Hastings was 19 years old. You know how I know that? Because he was like a week younger than I am.
You did math.
Oh, because I know how to add and subtract. He was 19 years old. How many people out here, including all these Associated Press writers, could honestly say they were making the most awesome choices when they were 19 anyways? We're scrutinizing the wrong information.
Well, we read through the coroner's report, and if that's even
getting ready to get to that.
If that's even a real account, it's cherry-picked to give a particular perception of Hastings and try to damage his credibility after he's already dead.
How much time we got before break? I don't even know if I have time. Okay, we don't have time to get into this, but yeah.
You better do a teaser.
Okay, you guys, we're getting ready to talk about.
Are you folks out? First of all, thanks for listening. We'll will you be satisfied with just a teaser? Because we're going to be back.
We're going to be back so I can tell you how stupid and ridiculous this freaking report is. This coroner's report is a
When we
joke.
return, a shocking joke in the life of idiocracy. A tease-all coroner's report. We'll give you the details. It's not really funny. But
No, it actually isn't funny. It's sick.
give us a moment. We'll be back.
For hundreds of years, an elite group of oligarchs have ruled the land, fueled by a legacy of sex, money, power and greed. In the last 60 years, their power has become more consolidated as they have become more organised. Their own white papers and other documents show the diabolic plans they have in store for the population. Shade the Motion Picture. Order your copy of the DVD today. ShadeTheMotionPicture.com.
Introducing the Unbound Radio Justice League. Ambellis, Baker, Bannister, Barcelo, Burmis, Dykes, Jacqueline, Joseph, King, Lindauer, Melton, Phillips, Popeye, SGT, Stanch, and Tarpley. The Justice League has been assembled to combat the Legion of Doom, a criminal banking syndicate seeking to enslave humanity and plunder the world. But the Justice League needs your help. Donate today so they can keep fighting for you. Unbound Radio, your source for truth in a society of lies.
Get ready for the epic new documentary adventure ride of your life. Shade the Motion Picture. A view into the globalist domain. An embellish and Burmese film.
Nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does.
We have to let them know that their world government has been identified, and they thought they'd include the world economy to bring in a worldwide police state, but instead it's going to bring them down.
You have to stand up, speak up, speak out.
Shade the Motion Picture. Order your copy of the DVD today at ShadeTheMotionPicture.com.
Oh, yeah. When my baby and I get home after a long day's work, we like to settle down and listen to Unbound Radio with some of the best hosts in independent media like Shepard Ambellis, Webster Tarpley, Joe Joseph and John King, Popeye, Joe Bannister, Alan Phillips, SGT Report, Susan Lindauer, Kenneth Webb, and many others. It's easy to see why Unbound Radio is one of the fastest growing independent media outlets in the world. And I love to visit the Unbound Radio outdoor store for some of the best emergency preparedness supplies, hunting and firearm accessories, and camping and survival gear that money can buy in a convenient one-stop shop that helps support a fantastic talk radio outlet. You know, the biggest fear that the global gangsters have is the truth. So help us spread it far and wide by supporting Unbound Radio's outdoor store by making a donation. Unbound Radio, your source for truth in a society of lies.
Hi, I tell you down at that UnboundRadio.com, they busier than a stump full of ants riding a graveyard train on biscuit wheels. They're as tougher than a $2 steak, and they got that there's New World Order nervouser than a long-tailed bobcat in a room full of rocking chairs. Just a bunch of good old boys and girls doing their part, but they need some help. So go on now over to UnboundRadio.com on your internet and click that Make a Contribution at the top of the page. Change their luck with a buck, 'cause they don't suck. That's what I'm talking about.
Do you like losing your rights to tyranny? Just asking. Get Unbound. Unbound Radio.
We're back on True Stream Media. Now, Melissa was about to get into the whole coroner's report and the details concerning Michael Hastings' death, but the perspective, the context that's nowhere to be found in that report is one that we have to put together for ourselves. And it's the question, is there a purge against journalists? Is there a climate where real investigative reporting can happen in this country? It really doesn't matter if you agree with Michael Hastings' political outlook or Barrett Brown's or Bradley Manning's or the things that they've done. There's people on this planet who are in prison and not in prison who've done far worse. So let's just take it as it comes. But we need to look at what's going on inside this illegal government administration. It goes far beyond Obama, but it includes Obama. And I think it was Joseph Farah from WorldNet Daily who pointed out that there was intentions to purge journalists, and it could be going on right now. It's very clear they don't want hackers and leakers.
Doug Hagman over at Hagman and Hagman Report, he said it. I mean, a lot of people have come forward with information saying that there is basically a witch hunt for journalists. Anybody who's reporting leaks, anybody who's talking out against the Obama administration's agenda, which is really not Obama's agenda, it's the shadow government behind Obama's agenda.
And we know what happened under the Nixon administration with leaks. They took extreme measures to deal with leakers. That's what led to the whole Watergate scandal. Turned out it was a bigger scandal than Nixon had his head wrapped around because they intended to bring him down, put the president in check, and, maybe accidentally bring in some people who were appointed and couldn't be elected, thinking of Rockefellers. But in our current day and age, if you ask serious questions about the president, or even if you just try to bring out stuff in a stunt, well, you end up dead like Andrew Breitbart right before your big release happens.
Oh, I thought that was no foul play.
Or you end up in prison like these people, or you have an auto accident. And John Brennan is totally in question because he's known to have operated the secret drone assassination list. How they decided...
They called him the architect of the drone program.
Yeah, and he came to the president at least once a week, and they authorized who they were going to kill by drones that week. And who believes they have the right to take up that power over life and death, I don't know. But this man's now in charge of the CIA.
Yeah, well, and he was set to be, according to all the reports that have come out, and now we're getting ready to see, I guess, Hastings' work come out, he was going to be doing a report on Brennan. Michael Hastings was, before he passed. And he sent out an email just days before that saying that he was going to have to go off the radar because he was working on a big story. And he told his editor that, and one of his close friends and somebody else in an email, and that the FBI had been around looking at his close friends and associates, which he put in quotes, and that they should probably he told his editor, you should probably get an attorney. Because they might be coming around asking you questions. And it turns out the story he was going to be working on was going to target CIA Director Brennan. And why should Brennan be worried about that? Well, there's a lot of questions about that. I mean, considering that Hastings has been credited with taking down General Stanley McChrystal with his piece in Rolling Stone, The Runaway General, ending that guy's career. And he even wrote in a book later that he received death threats over that. And they said, we don't like what you write, we'll kill you. And so you've got that. Then you've got this hacked email, which WikiLeaks has posted up, which is a hacked email from CIA contractor Stratfor and their president, Fred Burton. And this is what the email said. It was sent September 21st, 2010, and it says, Brennan is behind the witch hunts of investigative journalists learning information from inside the Beltway sources. Note, there is a specific tasker from the White House to go after anyone printing materials negative to the Obama agenda, and in parentheses, oh my. Even the FBI is shocked. The Wonder Boys must be in meltdown mode. That's what the email says. And when San Diego 6 reporter brought this to the attention of the CIA to get comment, they called, I guess she received 2 emails and a phone call, and they said, quote, without commenting on information disseminated by WikiLeaks, any suggestion that Director Brennan has ever attempted to infringe on constitutionally protected press freedoms is offensive and baseless. That was their response. So they did respond to it. They didn't say whether it was true or not. They just said that, they didn't say whether or not the email had been changed or edited or what that person said was true. They just said any suggestion that Brennan has attempted to infringe on constitutionally protected press freedoms is offensive. And
we are officially shocked and just shamed that you would suggest
this is
Rasputin.
offensive. This is baseless. A guy who's, sending drones over in unconstitutional drone strikes without due process, that's murdering children all over the Middle East. He cares about constitutional protection like that of Anwar al-Awlaki and his son, who were both American citizens who were both killed in drone strikes without any due process. And the 16-year-old kid that was killed, he was born in Denver, Colorado. He had never committed any crime, and there was never any evidence that he was tied to any kind of terrorism. But Brennan gives a lot of care, just sitting around up nights caring about people's constitutional protections.
It'd be like
believe that.
It'd be like being in Russia before communism took over and saying, how dare you suggest Rasputin's motivated by the devil and doesn't have Russians' best
How dare
interests?
you suggest communism is here while we're being communist? Look, okay, this is coming out of Stratfor. They are contracted with the CIA. So if those people are saying that, if the president is saying that to other people in that company, okay, why are they hiring these people for intelligence if the stuff they're telling each other is BS? Okay? That's the question. If what they're saying to each other inside the intelligence agency, that's their job. They are in intelligence. That's why they're being contracted by our freaking government. If what they're saying is wrong and not true, why are they being paid out the waz to be hired by our government for their intelligence? It makes no sense. Okay? But they're offended. Well, I'm glad that you're offended. I'm offended too. I'm offended that we're not getting the questions answered surrounding Michael Hastings' death that we need to have answered. Whether or not he was legally prescribed Adderall, which was later found in his system, is irrelevant. It has no bearing on what happened to him and surrounding his death at all. This autopsy report, if you guys go to, it's linked to it in our story, but you can find it quite easily. If you go find this and read this actual report, this is the most bizarre, I don't just sit around all day, obviously, reading coroner's reports. So I'm not going to try and say that I know what they all look like normally, but there's a narrative at the beginning, investigator's narrative. It's 2 pages, it's about 2.5 pages long-ish, and the majority of this narrative is 6 paragraphs of a witness statement. So the investigation part is one little 2-sentence paragraph. The scene description is another little paragraph with about 7 sentences. And the body examination itself is another single paragraph. And then in between that is 6 paragraphs of this narrative and informant witness statements. Now, this is the most bizarre thing ever. Do I have time to get into this before the next break? I just want to double check.
You absolutely do.
Okay, great. Let me just read you this. First of all, they talk about how there were beer bottles in the grass next to the car that they're not sure if it came from the car. Like the whole car blew up and exploded, and yet 2 empty beer bottles were sitting next to the car, so they included that in there. Like if you crash on the side of the road, the trash that's on the side of the road is somehow credited to you. Those beer bottles are mentioned in this report a couple of times, and I'm pretty sure they didn't come from the car. He didn't even have any alcohol found in his blood. So interesting that they decided to put that in there. It's like let's just add that in just for the added little sprinkling. But
let's face it, this is a smear job. If this was really his brother.
I didn't even say that part yet. I'm not even to that part yet. This is the part where the detectives go to the residence and they say blank arrived at 0830 hours after they learned that the investigators were attempting to contact the family. And it says he had just arrived from New York the day prior with another brother scheduled to arrive later the same morning. So that, to me, suggests this is one of Michael Hastings' brothers, since he had 2 brothers. The fact that it says with another brother scheduled to arrive.
Well, since it's blank, maybe it's also not his brother. Maybe it's some shadowy figure who claims to be his best friend.
Well, it says with another brother. I don't know. Then it says, as the family is attempting to get the decedent, that's Hastings, to go to detox, because decedent was believed to be sober for the past 14 years, but this witness believed the decedent had started to use drugs again just in the past month or so. So just in the past month or so, suddenly Hastings is just using drugs after 14 years of being sober, which would have put him at 19 years old. Then it says that the witness believed that Hastings was using DMT, which was not found in his blood at all, and that he also had a medicinal marijuana card that was found in his wallet. That's already been stated. And then it says there was also mention of a past traffic collision in which the decedent collided into a pole several years ago, believed as under the influence at the time. With report, decedent had been misusing Ritalin about this time. At one point, he believed to have been bipolar. However, it was later learned his behavior was actually stemming from the Ritalin misuse, and he was institutionalized for rehab in 1999. Again, that he would have been 19 at that time. Upon inquiry, decedent's history was not known to include suicide attempts. Then this witness added the decedent believed he was invincible, believing he could jump from a balcony and he would be okay. Then the witness added that he would not be surprised if any stimulants were found within the residence, including cocaine. So this is the witness they got that's just randomly like, oh, and by the way, he was in a wreck a while ago, and I think he was under the influence at the time, and also he's doing all kinds of drugs, and we think there's stimulants in his house, and he got cocaine, and he's on DMT, and he's crazy, and he was bipolar one time, and he had to be reinstitutionalized, and blah, 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 blah. Like, what? This person shows up that's a family member, and suddenly they're just like, yeah, like, Hastings was a total crackhead, he was doing all kinds of horrible stuff. He was, I mean, come on, what? And then it goes on to say that he reportedly, it says he had been last seen decedent a few hours prior at decedent's residence, sometime around 0:30 to 0100 hours, at which time decedent reportedly, quote unquote, passed out. You know, sometimes when I'm taking a nap, we use the phrase pass out. That doesn't mean he was like all high, stumbling around. Oh my God, I'm on so much meth and pot. I gotta go pass that. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, it's so ridiculous. And that makes up the majority of the investigator's narrative are these witness statements. It's like they went and found a book that just had all the things they could say about Hastings that would make him look really bad in this situation. Like he's an irresponsible driver, that he's on all kinds of drugs.
Well, that's the thing.
It's ridiculous. Who reads this and believes it?
It's clearly a smear job, and whoever this was, if they were close to him, they clearly didn't respect him much and are not doing him any justice in this coroner's report. And it's always very telling when the system so quickly moves to say, well, you know, the coroner's report's forthcoming, but no foul play.
No foul play.
There's no foul play.
They said that within several days of his crash.
And they did it with Barnaby Jack. They did it with Breitbart. They've done it in many cases, and their unwillingness to give a real investigation is very telling.
That's so
to what
telling.
might really be going on.
They found 0.05 micrograms per milliliter of legal amphetamine in his bloodstream that he was prescribed for Adderall. And now everyone everywhere, all these news outlets is, Michael Hastings was on meth. Because all of a sudden he's working on a big story that he's getting ready to go off radar. And he's like, and and while I'm doing that, I'm going to also just do some meth randomly. What?
This is a portrayal to smear his character that
really
puts it in a completely different context from his obviously distinguished reporting. Whether or not you liked his reporting, I wasn't that familiar with it until after his death. He had brought down the general and raised serious questions, and I don't think the system liked the fact that he wanted to interview Barrett Brown in jail, that he was raising questions about what was really going on with these surveillance companies. They was investigating John Brennan, already a controversial figure ahead of being confirmed because of his involvement in the drone program. And Michael Hastings is one of these journalists who's on the forefront of critiquing the drone program. I think it all connects to a purge. There's clearly a struggle going on for the information age between those who are doing the massive wholesale spying and those who are trying to uncover it. And maybe you don't like people hacking into emails and sharing them, but you better start asking the big criminals then, why is the government doing it? Stay tuned. This is Unbound Radio. You're listening to True Stream Media.
Hey folks, check out the Unbound Radio website, www.unboundradio.com. Read through some of our exclusive articles, wander through our fast show archives, purchase a membership, and gain access to a secure chat room that's 100% troll-free. Plus, your membership makes you eligible for members-only contests and giveaways. So sign up today by selecting the members area on the menu bar. Unbound Radio, your source for truth in a society of lies.
Introducing the Unbound Radio Justice League. Ambellis, Baker, Bannister, Barcelo, Burmis, Dykes, Jacqueline, Joseph, King, Lindauer, Melton, Phillips, Popeye, SGT, Stanch, and Tarpley. The Justice League has been assembled to combat the Legion of Doom, a criminal banking syndicate seeking to enslave humanity and plunder the world. But the Justice League needs your help. Donate today so they can keep fighting for you. Unbound Radio, your source for truth in a society of lies.
For hundreds of years, an elite group of oligarchs have ruled the land, fueled by a legacy of sex, money, power, and greed. In the last 60 years, their power has become more consolidated as they have become more organized. Their very own white papers and other documents show the diabolic plans they have in store for the population. Shade the Motion Picture, an Embellis and Burmis film, featuring Shepard Embellis, Jason Burmis, Alex Jones, Clyde Lewis, Webster Tarpley, Jordan Maxwell, Rosalind Peterson, Michael Murphy, reggae artist Skoll, Luke Radowski, Servano Gonzalez, and more. Buy your copy of Shade the Motion Picture DVD right now at shadethemotionpicture.com.
I tell you down at that UnboundRadio.com, they busier than a stump full of ants riding a graveyard train on biscuit wheels. They're tougher than a $2 steak, and they got that damn New World Order nervouser than a long-tailed bobcat in a room full of rocking chairs. Just a bunch of good old boys and girls doing their part, but they need some help. So go on now over to UnboundRadio.com on your internet and click that Make a Contribution at the top of the page. Change their luck with a buck. Good they don't suck. That's what I'm talking about.
Big Brother is watching, while the sleeping giant is listening. Unbound Radio.
Do you think they'll drop the bomb? Mother, should I trust the government? Mother, will they put me in the firing line? Is it just a waste of time?
We're back on Unbound Radio, True Stream Media Live, and we've been talking about Hastings and this new smear campaign that all of the media has jumped on to basically say that he was a meth head and a pothead. And that's basically what they're making it look like with these headlines, which if you actually read the stories themselves, they even admit in their own articles, like on the LA Times, that these trace amounts of drugs that were found in his system, which later we found through alternative media were both legally, you know, he had a medicinal marijuana card. He had a prescription for Adderall. It was trace amounts of amphetamine in his system. It was not meth. But they go on to even admit in their own article that these don't have any effect or bearing on what actually ultimately happened to him when his car slammed into a tree and exploded in a way that can only be described as a Jerry Bruckheimer-esque fantastical array of special effects. It does, I mean, I've gone to great lengths at the article I put up on True Stream Media, How Did Michael Hastings Really Die, to show I've got a video of a car being purposefully blown up. I've got a video of cars on fire. I've got a video of a car that was in a high-speed chase and slammed into a median on a highway going very fast. Look at the flames, folks. Look at what happened. It does not match up for that fire to burn that hot, that intense, white, blazing fire in his car wreck that you see versus all of the, like, did he have a magical car that had a magical fuel in it that just makes his car different, that it's able to explode and launch the engine over 100 feet away from the car and not wrap around the tree? I mean, there's just too many things about that scene that make no sense scientifically at all. Okay? And you don't have to be a forensic specialist to see that. You just have to look at it with common sense. That's it.
Well, the bottom line is, even if he was a hardcore drug addict, he had political significance, so this needs to be investigated. And it doesn't matter how messed up he was when he was drunk. Well, it matters, but it doesn't explain what happened to the engine.
Well, even in the coroner's report and in all these articles that are smearing all over, like he's not a factor.
Whatever
not a
drugs
factor
he was taking, it
trace
wasn't
amounts.
a factor.
He had trace amounts in his system. It was not a factor in how his car defied all logic and reason in exploding in a huge white, hot, blazing fire. And now, you know, his wife, who was a former director of communications for the National Security Council in 2008, 2009, she was a speechwriter for former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. She went on Piers Morgan and said it was just a really tragic accident, and smiled. And I don't know. I don't want to talk about how people grieve, but even people who go on Piers Morgan just to talk about politics aren't really smiling and excited to be on Piers Morgan, okay? Nobody's like, yay, Piers Morgan! I mean, I've never seen it anyway. I guess somebody can send me that example.
Well, folks who've studied the JFK case know how Marina Oswald was handled immediately after that assassination, and dressed up and told what to say by the FBI. They took advantage of her limited English. Today, she's still around. She understands more what really happened, but at the time, she was understandably confused, but they used that confusion.
Well, this is what's going to happen now. What's going to happen now is they're going to use this as a way to completely take everyone's attention away from the completely bizarre circumstances surrounding Hastings' car crash, his death, and they're just going to focus on this instead. We're never going to find out any of the answers to those questions. Meanwhile, they're going to go ahead and put his article in the upcoming issue of Rolling Stone, which is going to be completed by one of his writer friends, a guy named Matt Farwell. And I'm sure it'll be 100% complete. There won't be anything missing. It won't be watered down at all. I'm sure it'll be exactly the way Hastings wrote it, and it'll have all the information in there that he wanted us to know about. I'm so totally sure.
When we're critiquing the government, we're dealing with people who have fed off the energy and power of taking life and having the authority to take life. The drone assassination program, kill list, is just one microcosm of that. And anyone who's putting significant light of day on that deserves the justice of a real investigation. Even if the family members didn't want any investigation, respectfully, we the people deserve to know the truth about this stuff.
Yeah, and they're not going to tell us, and they're just going to keep stonewalling and putting out all this sideshow BS that makes no sense and has no bearing on what actually happened to this man. And meanwhile, we're living in a country where now they're buying 3.5 million rounds of ammunition to arm the TSA. And we have 100 to 150 SWAT raids going on per day in this country. Our police is completely militarized. We're completely being taken over in a police state. And they're obviously disappearing people who are dissenters, who are whistleblowers, who would seek to shine a light on these injustices. And Michael Hastings was 33 years old. And if it can happen to him, it can happen to any of us. Anybody who's trying to do, like what Aaron and I try to do all the time, we're just trying to report on the truth of what's going on behind the facade of lies that's being shoved down all of our throats. But any of you, even people that just post on Facebook a story and say, hey, look at this, the government's wrong for doing this, they don't want you talking. And this is the lengths they will go to keep people from talking. And it's meant to have a chilling effect on us all. It's a travesty, and we're not going to stop talking about Hastings. We're not going to quit asking questions, and I hope that most of the alternative media never does, because that wreck looks phony as a $3 bill.
In closing, we did the NASA Future of War document, and for all their advanced technology and ability to kill us, they also clearly rely on the CNN syndrome, the perception that they are in control. Clearly that gives away they are not. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
We'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Unbound Radio.
Bye.